This is what I want to use this as an introduction to this interview with Glenn Beck, because it's a long interview, so I want to get to it quickly. I want to talk about our sense of diversity and our sense of individuality, because Donald Trump, obviously a divisive figure. Both Glenn Beck and I started out thinking, this is a horrible, horrible guy. Both of us, I said when he was elected, all right, now he starts to work for me. I'm erasing the slate. Nothing happened before this. Now he's working for me. I will make the judgments on what he does. I feel that Trump has done a great job. I feel that he's learned. I feel he's become better at what he's doing. For instance, during this Kavanaugh thing, he's been very restrained. That's something I don't think he would have had the wisdom to do before. He didn't just become a pugilist. He's held his fire. I think he's gotten better. Glenn likes him a lot less than I do. I still feel that Trump as a human being is not somebody I'm that thrilled about. But I'm an artist. I understand that the hands that sculpted the thinker also beat women. Life is complicated. I would not give up the brilliant sculpture of Rodin because he wasn't a great guy. I think Trump is doing a great job as president. I don't want him for a daddy. I don't want him for a friend. I don't want him anywhere near my daughter, but I think he's doing a great job as president. Glenn still has very, very serious reservations. Here is the thing, though. What do we stand for? What do we stand for? Never mind standing against the left. We stand for the rights of the individual. That's why we hate socialism, because we stand for you to keep your own money. We stand for the rights of the individual. We stand for diversity of thought. We stand for diversity of ideas and conscience, because that's what individuals are made of. They're not made of whether you're gay or black or white. None of that is all that important. What is really important is your conscience and your thought and the way you reason about the world, this inner you, that is the person that you are. If we believe in the individual, then we have to believe in disagreement. We have to believe that people of good conscience are still going to disagree. They're going to find different ways forward. Glenn is not hating on Donald Trump because he has some plot to hand America over to the communists. He's examining his own conscience and what he wants for the country. So he's written this new book called Addicted to Outrage, which I think is, first of all, the premise of it is brilliant. It is Addicted to Outrage, how thinking like a recovering addict can heal the country. And outrage, I've said, how many times have I said, anger is the devil's cocaine, right? Anger is the devil's cocaine. He's absolutely right that outrage is an addiction. And he wants to talk about how to break that addiction and maybe move forward. I raised in this interview, I don't do a lot of talking in this interview because Glenn can talk for himself, but I'm going to talk now. I raised two objections. He wants to bring those people together who will talk to one another. And I raised two objections. One is this. I feel that the worst, by far, the worst behavior has been on the left. Are there bad people on the right? Obviously, of course there are. But our crazies are in the comment sections of blogs. Their crazies are Dianne Feinstein. Their crazies are senators and congresswomen and the last president of the United States. Their radicals own the press. Their radicals own NBC, ABC, CBS. Their radicals control a media which universally attacks the basic standards of this country every single day and night. And so how do we reconcile? How do we get around that incredible structure of wrongdoing to get to the people on the left, and there are millions of them? How do we get to the people on the left who will talk to us, who will say, you know what, you're not hateful. We do have points in common, a lot of points in common. I too think there are only two sexes. I think when they, I want, gay people to be treated well, but obviously there are only two sexes, men and women. How do we reach those people? So, you'll hear me raise that objection to Glenn. And the other is, how do we get our own side to listen? When you're calling Glenn Beck a traitor, which, let me tell you, is absurd. And I'm very fond of Glenn. I'll be honest, obviously. You can see that I'm fond of him when I talk to him. I also worked for him for 6 months, and I saw the people he worked for and how much they loved him, how well they were treated. I mean, it's kind of hard not to like the guy. I also think he's one of the great broadcasters of the age, one of the natural talents of the age. So I have a lot of respect and affection for him. But I don't agree with him on some of this stuff, and I think there are problems about it that have to be faced. But does that make him a traitor? He's a traitor? Really? Really? Because he thought Donald Trump was a bad guy? I mean, really? So I think it's worth listening to. It's well worth listening to. It's a really interesting interview. And I think just, this is our side. There's got to be, remember what Paul said about the body of Christ? He said there are different people with different roles. What Glenn is thinking here, I think, is visionary. I think he has a view of the future that's really important. And I think it's worth listening to for all its problems. Here is Glenn Beck, one of the great broadcasters of the age, talking about his new book, Addicted to Outrage. Glenn, it's great to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.
And without a cigar, you know.
I know. It doesn't smell in here.
I'll do what I can.
Yeah, I know. Well, it smells a little because you're next door to Michael Knowles, so it smells a little in here.
He may be decaying in there. I'm not
right,
sure.
I'm not sure.
You know, I've actually been really looking forward to this, not just because I always like talking to you, but you are actually writing and thinking about something that has kind of been obsessing me, but I want to talk to you about it in very realistic terms. We're talking about your book, Addicted to Outrage. So we'll start there. We'll start with, talk about it. You're talking about outrage as an addiction, as an actual addiction.
It is an addiction, and why don't you hand it to me for a second? I think it's on like page, 11 or 22. It's one of those, double numbers. Here it is. Why outrage works. In the very beginning of the book, I talk about there are three things that are really important with the kind of outrage we're dealing with. First, the outrage that signals virtue. And the louder you get and the earlier you are on this, the bigger you are, okay? And you can now really wield a lot of power because you were leading the way, okay? Then there's the next. This causes outrage to become a shield from any moral judgment on you because you now are untouchable. Nobody can say anything about you. Excuse me, you're talking about me? No, we're talking about that young girl that was whatever, ripped from the arms of her parents, on the border. You now can shape everything. And the last piece is outrage as a weapon. You have the three arrows in your quiver. You have shame, guilt, and fear. I can do anything to you. You cannot defend yourself. Now, I think we'd all recognize, it goes into a little deeper than this, but we can all recognize that that's what's happening right now. It's a weapon. That's all it is a weapon. But listen to this part. So now the last is it turns into identity. So outrage is an identity. By far the most destructive aspect of outrage addiction is that over time, it overtakes and replaces the addict's identity. They surrender the responsibility of developing a caring, rational human persona. Hallmarks of a genuine and healthy human personality tend to be smothered below a facade of impulsive, manic, emotional responses driven by the addiction. So in the end, it creates these shallow people that don't actually care. And let me give you an example, the border. Drew, I was there on the border in 2012. I was one of the only people on the border in 2012, right? Yeah. Everybody in America hated me on both sides for this. But I felt we have to care about the people. I want them to go home. I'm not welcoming in. I want to make sure they're well fed and taken care of. So I go down there and the border guards are begging me, can you get the press to pay attention? They're separating these children, not from their parents. They were coming over in droves as children, okay? So like 3 kids would come in. One would be 15, one would be 10, one would be 7, but they were brothers and sisters. The border guards are like, we're putting all the 10-year-olds in this shed. We're putting all of the 7-year-olds over here. We're separating them. It's tearing these children apart because they came with their brother and sister and they have no security now. Can you please get somebody to pay attention? I begged the media. I called them. I wrote them. Look, you don't have to include me. This is really important. Nothing. Right. Nothing. Because they've become this empty shell, a rotting corpse with a giant shield and arrows that's just signaling virtue, but it's all for politics. Well, there's nothing real.
Okay, so this is the thing, because obviously this is a problem in our country, right? We're totally divided.
Right.
Things are going great in the country. I mean, I laugh about it all the time. For somebody who loves the absurd,
yeah.
Things are really pretty good,
Not only here in the country, but capitalism, and I outline this in the book, there's no better time to live than right now.
Absolutely.
And if you could choose where you were going to be born and raised, it would be right now in America.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah. I mean, and when you compare it to the way life can be, which is really bad, it's amazing. It is amazing. Okay. So, I mean, I say this on the show all the time. I have a slogan, anger is the devil's cocaine.
Right.
And, I mean, it's the devil's cocaine because it, makes you feel righteous. But the people that you're talking about, and here's one of the first two things, because I want to be realistic about this. One of the first two things, all the people that you're talking about are on one side of the political divide. Not saying there are no jerks on the right. I'm just saying as a philosophical point, that the people who are ignoring the people in the border in 2012 and making a crisis out of it in 2018 are doing it because they're on the left.
You weren't on the border with me and got the massive body blows from my friends on the right. Okay? Right. So generally speaking, I agree with you.
I'm not talking about the quality of the people, though. I'm talking about this massive media, which is so powerful.
Okay. So let's separate things.
Yeah.
When we're talking about this plan, because this is not a hey, we all have to love each other book. Okay. This is not surrender. This is, you don't understand what's being played and how they're playing it and why they're playing it. Okay. And most Democrats don't even know it. But once you understand the game they're playing, your outrage, your hitting back, your response, your anger is only making it go faster. They want that from you, okay? So if you want to save the country, you need to reframe. We're doing the same thing over and over, and it's just getting worse. That's insanity. Why is it getting worse? Because we don't understand the game that the ultra left is playing. And they would say the ultra right, but I would put the ultra right with the ultra left.
There are only 20 of them, the ultra right.
Yeah. All right. So with that being said, we have to first let's define the playing field here. Let me be really pessimistic. I do not think it's anywhere close to this, but let me be really pessimistic. Think of a football field, right and left. Okay. Let's say there is 15% of radicals who want to destroy America on the left, okay? And on the right, there's another 15% that just want to rip us apart. They want nothing to burn it all down. We're going to start all over again. Whatever it is, they hate what we have, okay? That's 30%. Nothing in this book is aimed towards them. You're not going to change them. They're not going to be saved or turned around. They do not have good intentions. I'm talking about the 70%. Now, out of that 70, I'll bet you that there are 60 that are gettable.
Mm-hmm. I actually agree with these numbers.
Right, okay? It only takes 20%, 17% for the tipping point. A dedicated 10% can change the world. 17% is a tipping point. You have 50% that are lockstep that say, I know the game you're playing. I know the game you're playing. And you know what? Doesn't bother me. Mm-hmm. Doesn't bother me. Here's what we are going to do. We're going to do X, Y, and Z because this large group of people are talking to each other. We know who we are. You're lying to us and about us. Okay? Maybe you're on the left. You on the left, these radicals, are lying to me about them. And those on the right, okay, we're all being lied to, and we're being used and manipulated.
I am with you, and when I watch you say these things, and I mean, just today, I sent out a tweet because we did that backstage show.
Yeah.
I hate to flatter you, but I can't help it. I was marveling at your broadcast. You are a broadcast god. I've never seen anybody walk into a room and speak as naturally as that.
I take my shirt off. I look a little like Thor.
I know. We were dazzled. I was blinded by the beauty.
I know.
But I said something on Twitter, and immediately they got, Beck is a traitor. Beck, he's a traitor. I thought, like, Glenn Beck is a traitor because he had reservations about Trump. You've been really fair to him. I mean, you did not, you haven't just sat there taking pot shots at him, and you haven't been like some people who I find kind of annoying, who are still kind of virtue signaling over Trump's many, many personal flaws. Mm-hmm. But you've given him a fair you know,
I
when he
said
did
I
things
would.
yeah,
I said I would
you did.
during the election. I said,
did.
look, I'm judging him based on what I know of him now. The real judge starts once he becomes president.
That's what I said too. But what I want to ask you is,
Yeah.
as a business matter, right? Because this is a business. I mean, this is a business. As a business matter, how then do you break through your persona to the people?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't. I don't know. I mean, I talked to. Have you ever read the book Pendulum?
No.
Okay, it's a business book, came out about 2011. An absolute must read. You should read it. Have you read The Fourth Turning?
No, these are you read books that I'll come out of my kennel. I'll look
Okay.
for them.
Yeah, you should read both of those books because it will help you. I've been reading stuff that will help me explain what's happening to us, where we are in history. The patterns of history are really important. Who has done these things before? How did it go wrong? How did it go right? Let me start with Gandhi. Why did Gandhi win?
Because he was up against a nation with a conscience that would actually respond to his tactics.
Correct. Why did Bonhoeffer lose?
Because he wasn't. He was up against monsters.
Okay, right?
Yeah.
So very good, Drew. I've asked that question to so many people, and they don't. Well, I don't really know. It's clear. Bonhoeffer was saying to the people around him, I've got to talk to Mr. Gandhi. He knows how to fix this, okay? He didn't have any special, magic that he could do. Bonhoeffer was doing it. The difference was the people. They had lost the Judeo-Christian principles. Yeah. They had gone dark. They had begun to accuse each other, hate each other, separate into other camps, and become cowards. It was too late. It was too late. It's not too late for us.
No,
it's not too late.
Right.
It is growing late, but I went over to Poland with my kids, and I met one of the righteous among the nations. She's a sweet, sweet woman.
Who helped the Jews.
Who helped the Jews. She saved 100 Jews. She was 16, and a Jewish girl came up to her on the street and said, please, I'm starving. You could only feed a Jew, I think, 300 calories a day. Okay, so they were starving to death. If you were caught feeding or giving any kind of food to a Jewish person, not only would you get their same fate, but your whole family would. So Paulina is walking on the street, and this woman comes up to her and says, please, I'm starving. She said, I don't have any food, but meet me here tomorrow and I'll bring you something. So now it's dinner time. She's sitting with her mother, her brother, and her father. And she says, Mom and Dad, I did something today. Now remember, you're in Nazi Germany. You're right on the wall of the ghetto. And the mom and dad, she said, the mom and dad just looked at each other. I said, what? She said, I met a Jewish girl. She was about my age, and she asked me for food, and I said I would bring it tomorrow. She told me that her mom and dad just stared at each other at the table for a while. Didn't say anything, just stared at each other. That conversation that didn't happen. Yeah. And her mom shook her head and got up, got a pot, started peeling vegetables. And Paulina said, what are you doing? And she said, well, she's certainly not going to come home. She's certainly not going to come alone. If she's starving, everybody she knows is starving.
It's a great story.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they save 100. So I go there and I'm with my family. This is a personal journey. I'm with my family. I bring my older kids and we go through Auschwitz. I make them read a story. I don't care who, but read the story of one of the righteous among the nations. And we get there right before we go in. And I said, this is the summer that we are going to decide who we are. Because when it happens, if you haven't prepared for it, you're gone. If you haven't exercised your moral muscle on the easy things, you're done. So we went. We met Paulina afterwards. And she told us the stories of what it was like. And I said to her, the last thing, everybody was leaving. And I said, Paulina, I have a big audience. And I feel like these days are coming back. And I said, and I believe everybody has the tree of righteousness in them. How do I water it? She looked at me with just such a strange, like, I don't even understand that question. And she said, you misunderstand. The righteous didn't suddenly become righteous. They just refused to go over the cliff with the rest of humanity. That's groundbreaking to me. You don't have to be Superman. You just have to stand where you've always stood, where your parents said, this is right, this is wrong. How many genders are there? How many difference of the sexes? How many? Two,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You know that. Why do you know that?
Because it's all nature reveals it.
Right.
Yeah.
Nature reveals it. Science has proven it. That's it.
Right.
Don't go over the cliff with the rest of humanity. Because if you don't exercise your moral muscle on the little things that seem, big now, you could lose your job for saying that. What happens?
But see, all of this I agree with. And the thing that bothers me, because I really do believe, you're right, we haven't gone too far. And I don't think we're as far as you do. I'm always a little bit more optimistic.
Right.
But I do think the direction we've gone is all toward the left. And so when I'm with I always say that our crazies are in the comment section, their crazies are in Congress. And I think that is something.
I just talked to a Republican in one of the houses of Congress, who shall remain nameless, who said, Glenn, I don't know anyone. I can count them on 2 fingers. Beyond that, I don't know anyone in the GOP that actually truly believes in the Bill of Rights.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not,
yeah.
For him to have that perception, that's pretty bad.
That is bad.
So I write off all the people in Washington. I've given up on Washington. Not going to change Washington.
Washington is not a hopeful
And Washington
place,
it will never lead. The people must lead. Washington will eventually wake up, or they will just become irrelevant. Okay? Here's the thing. We are changing because we're angry. And righteous anger, okay? When people say to me, oh, you can't compare Barack Obama to Donald Trump. Oh, yes, I can. Yes, I can. You're saying he's a racist? Really? Can you help me again with Jeremiah Wright? We're just ignoring things of our own camp.
But you went out, I used to watch your show all the time, and you would come out when you would explain the Constitution, you explain American history.
Yeah.
You were a hated figure on the right. I mean, you were speaking.
But why?
That's what I'm asking you.
Like, I was a hated figure on the right.
You were a hated figure on the. You were considered to be a right winger.
Yes.
A right winger for sitting there going, here's the Constitution, here's God, this is what we believe, these are the things we've always believed. So you became
right.
That made you a right winger. That makes me a right winger.
I know. I know. How many people got the truth? Because of the media and the giant organizations that are just trying to pit us against each other for money, for power, how many people actually watched me more than a segment with Jon Stewart? How many people would be willing to sit down and say, I think this guy is a horrible human being, but I want to know myself? Craig Hadkoff is a guy who he co-created the Tribeca Film Festival. You think I'm popular with the Tribeca Film Festival?
Oh yeah, they have the big Glenn posters.
Right.
Yeah.
He called me one day and he said, "May I just meet you?" I said, "Sure. What do you want to do?" And he said, "I just want to meet you. I just want to talk to you." We went into a very liberal restaurant where he was very popular and I was not. We are good friends because he wanted to know himself. This is what I think you are based on what everybody tells me, but it doesn't make sense to me. I don't think you're that guy. He ended up, now think about how unpopular this is. He's the guy who nominated me and I won a Tribeca Film Festival award. Okay?
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
Right.
It just requires us to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to listen to the noise. I'm not going to listen to the noise because I don't believe 50% of the country wants to destroy us, whichever side that is. I do believe 30% of the country, 15, and I'm being generous. I just say 30. I don't know how it's balanced, but just let's say 15 and 15. I do believe there is 30% of this country, and I think this is too big of a number, that do want to destroy us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Well, so then why are we letting that 30% control us? And we're losing reason. When that person said, oh, I hate Glenn Beck, Twitter. Don't I know it, brother?
Yeah,
Don't
no,
I know
I
it?
know.
Okay?
Yeah.
It was interesting to me. I did a podcast with somebody a couple of days ago, and all the things were Glenn Beck, oh, Glenn Beck, Glenn Beck, Glenn Beck. One of them, because in it I had said that we were talking about Anonymous, and I said, look, the problem is he's the president. He's the duly elected president of the United States. The people selected him. We decided, we voted him into office. My point being, you cannot go around the people. No cabinet, nobody. Anybody who's taken stuff off of the president's desk and he's like, where is that stuff? You should not be around the president because he has my power. He has your power. Yes, he has Barack Obama and all the people who voted for Barack Obama. He has their power too in a government way, okay? He is supposed to be our president. But so many people on the right said, oh, he's our president. You said he was going to be a disaster. You're now claiming victory for him. No, that's not what I was doing. I'm very clear on where I stand, what I like and what I don't. Take it or leave it. It's my opinion. You don't have to march in lockstep. I'm not asking anybody. Right. In fact, I'm encouraging you not to walk in lockstep with me or anybody else. Do your own homework. Be your own person. Surround yourself with people who challenge your point of view so you are strong enough to defend it and you know what's real. Conservatives have a great advantage over liberals. We are pushed to the wall almost every day since you've said, I'm a conservative. Your life is just hell, okay? We're pushed to the wall. We're called bigot, racist, homophobes. At some point, you have to say, am I one of those? Am I? This viewpoint? You have to do the thinking, or you're just, I don't know what you are, but you're not a human being if people are calling you that all the time, and it doesn't make you stop and think. So we have to think who we really are, why we believe these things, because it's so much easier to just give up and go to the left. It's just easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a million other questions, but I'm out of time. I think you're I think you're talking about a visionary path, and I actually think it's possible. This is as optimistic as I've ever heard you sound. So there must be me getting on your nerves or something.
I was really no. I will tell you, Andrew. I was depressed 4 years ago. I didn't see a way out.
Yeah.
And my gut told me this is the way to go, but I didn't understand it. I did research. I found out what the disease actually is, who's doing this to us, where these words that none of us have ever heard of come from. Once you understand that, now let's fight differently.
Yeah.
Don't surrender. Fight differently.
Well, I want you to know when they come to get you, I'm going to be the guy like Peter going, I never saw him before. I don't know.
I don't know. I hated him. They made me say that about him on the show.
Exactly. Anyway, it's great to see you always.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right, Glenn Beck, the guy, I think he's on a visionary path, and he's going to pay a price for it. And when he does, we'll all desert him. I think that's basically the way to go.